Welcome to Quilting, the Beginning and the End with Nina McVeigh.
When machine quilting a quilt, there has to be a beginning and an end to every row of quilting. What if you can't always begin or end off the edge of the quilt? How do you neatly secure your stitches? Before you start quilting, you will want to set up two stitches in your machine, the quilting stitch and the securing stitch. First, let's set up the quilting stitch. You may use the regular straight stitch, number 1, and set it to whatever length you desire. Here, I have set the length to 3 millimeters. You may also use a decorative stitch if you desire. Now, for the securing stitch. Select the zigzag stitch. Set the width to 0. You have now created another straight stitch. Now set the length to 0.5 millimeters to make it a very short stitch. This stitch is called a packing stitch. So to begin and end your lines of quilting, you will pack your stitches. If you have selected a decorative stitch to quilt with, the needle may need to be moved to line up with the beginning of the stitch. Because of temporary altered memory, the alterations to these two stitches will now be remembered until you turn the machine off. So all you have to do is toggle back and forth between stitch 1 and stitch 2. Begin a row of quilting by selecting stitch 2, the packing stitch, and pulling up the bobbin thread. Lower the needle into the fabric exactly where you want the quilting to begin. Raise the needle and pull on the tail of the needle thread to pull the bobbin thread to the surface. Sew for approximately 1/4 inch with the packing stitch. Select stitch number 1 to continue quilting. As you approach the end of a line of stitching, change to stitch number 2 about 1/4 inch from the end and pack the stitches again. Remove the quilt, leaving a thread tail. The thread cutter may also be used if you wish to just cut your threads at this point. They are secure. But we are going to secure the threads as you would want to do if you were going to enter a quilt in a quilt show. You will have 2 threads at the beginning of the seam and only 1 thread tail at the end. Again, if you wish, you could cut them off, but as you see here, you may always see a little bit of a thread end. When you ended your quilting, you had a thread tail on the front of the quilt and a thread tail on the back. You will want to pull the needle thread to the back. Now, using a hand needle, and I prefer an easy threading needle where the thread just slips in, run the thread back under the stitching between the layers of the quilt. You may want to weave the thread in and out of the stitches, but be careful not to distort the stitching. Pull the threads tight and cut off both tails at the surface of the fabric. Because you pulled them tight, the ends should disappear between the layers. And here you can see the short little packing stitch, and actually it's about the length of the stitches in your quilting stitch. If you are free motioning your quilt, you will follow the same process. You will be in charge of stitch length, so you will pack your stitches by moving your fabric very little and then go into your normal free motion. The thread tails will be handled in the same way as before. In conclusion, you will have a beautiful beginning and end to your quilting if you remember to set up 2 stitches, a quilting stitch and a securing or packing stitch. You will begin by packing your stitches, change to a quilting stitch, and then back to a packing stitch when you end. Run the thread tails between the layers of the quilt and cut the threads. And with that, I hope you have happy quilting.